Hey guys, I just got a really quick video today because we have seen a sign of a potential low for Bitcoin right now. And this sign here is a daily close in the green for Bitcoin on the daily BX trender. That was absolutely horrendous grammar, but you can see when you try to snipe the low by looking for higher lows, so light red coming from dark red, you might, get the low, get in at a better price before a nice move up, especially like here, you get in at 110,500 instead of 114,300 and sell out, somewhere around the tops. But what happens when you try to do that is you can get failed signals. So, you may get a failed signal where you have to sell for a small loss or potentially a tiny, tiny bit of profit. But when you wait for confirmation on the daily BX trender, it is almost always a win. Like you get, a little signal here where you get in at 109,500, you get one day up, $2,000 move, and then it just nukes on you. So you at least have a chance almost always to put your stop into like a break even or, take partial profits. Now, obviously, nothing works all the time. You can see through this March period here, you got chopped out a couple of times, but that usually happens in a choppy market where you're seeing the daily BX trender flip from green to red, from green to red. Here, we've seen the daily BX trender sit in red for quite a number of days. So when it finally flips green, you can see in the last few occasions, it usually leads to at least a couple of days up. And that's where I think we are now for one other reason, and that is the USDT dominance has closed lower low, so dark red. Now this is pretty much the reverse of the Bitcoin price. You want the USDT dominance to be showing weakness so Bitcoin can go up. And you can see here again, there's very few false signals when you get dark red closes as compared to, darker green closes, which shows that buying pressure is coming out of the market. When you actually wait for selling pressure to build up, especially after you've been in the green for a while, there's very few false signals. You got one here in August 2025, but anyways, I am watching today because if today we can get another green close for Bitcoin on the daily BX trender and a red close on the USDT dominance, especially if it comes in under this 5% level, which if you watch any Jason Pizzino videos, you're going to know he's been talking about a lot lately. You want to see closes under 5%. Ideally under this orange line, around 4.7%, orange, that's yellow. But yeah, so jumping in at the shorter term timeframes, you can see I was stalking this potential head and shoulders setup. I shared this with the TIA Discord, I think somewhere yesterday, whilst we were around like 108,000 or even 108.5, something like that, how we could potentially be seeing a head and shoulders play out. But by the looks of it, it looks like on this previous 4-hour candle, we have seen a retest of this orange diagonal downtrend from the all-time high, and we have seen some pretty decent volume just bought up the not pretty decent volume to buy it up. We saw a lot of selling volume, but it got bought right back up. We saw a strong close, and this next candle actually looks like it is attempting to break through this blue line, which I have been using to try and establish like a Wyckoff range, the like Wyckoff range lines. I haven't been very successful just yet, simply because of this huge liquidation event here that's kind of thrown off all the volume range line data. So you can see I've got quite a few charts, I think this one as well, where I've been just trying to figure out like what actually is going on. But right now, on the 1-hour chart, you can see we are seeing hidden bullish divergences on the stochastic RSI, higher lows, market moving into the green. And obviously 4-hour chart, we're seeing some nice buying pressure. Stochastic RSI isn't maxed out yet. Although on the 4-hour chart, you can see the stochastic RSI can max out and sit there for many, many candles as price continues to move up. And especially, you know, when you get like a really clean run, like back here at the end of September, your stochastic RSI can max out, but price can keep going up. So stochastic RSI is one of my favorite indicators, but if you use it by itself, you're going to be buying the dip before the dip before the dip. You can see here, the stochastic RSI went to almost zero at 120K, but obviously we went far, far lower. And flip side, for when you're running up, if you sell as soon as the stochastic RSI maxes out, you know, you're going to be missing out on massive, massive runs. But when you pair it up with a whole bunch of other analysis, it lets you know you're getting in quite early in the trend before, you know, everyone else is FOMOing in with buying or panic selling. Now, obviously, from my last video, I did say on the higher term timeframes, the daily and the weekly, I do want to see 3 days up out of a significant low. Now, out of this low, we got inside up, and then we had a down day, so that's invalidated, because to get 3 days up, you can only have gray bars between the low and your 3 greens. So here we got gray, we had an outside bar, a blue, which resets the count. So even if we got 3 days up from there, it doesn't count because it's not coming out of a significant low. But right here, we've gotten 1 day up. We're currently in a inside day. So if we manage to, you know, push above 111,300 without taking out 107,460 using Binance, it may vary a little bit on other exchanges. But then if we can get a third up day that ideally takes out this blue diagonal downtrend line around $113,000, depending on when exactly we hit it. And then if we can start to see 3 daily closes on top of the 50 TMA, which I do believe is going to start to slope downwards a little bit. So it's going to probably be around 115K by the time we get up to it. I'll be very confident that a low is in, a major low in fact, and the start of potentially at least one daily upswing. You know, I'm sure all of us would love a single daily swing that goes from 115K to, you know, 135, 140K. We buy in, sell out, and we just get rich forever. But having a look at the weekly chart, I don't believe something like that is going to happen, simply because of how much selling we've had recently. Now, we're still red on the weekly BX Trender, so there's no confirmation of a low just yet. However, we are holding the market bias as support, and we haven't quite retested the 50-week triangular moving average. Now, I talked about in my last video that we could potentially see another down week this week, but that has not ended up happening because, you know, the Head and Shoulders didn't play out. We managed to hold this orange line, and it just looks like, despite all the fear in the market, you know, like if we jump to the fear and greed, you can see fear, extreme fear, and then we come over to like the FOMO finder. It's just been uncertainty, panic, uncertainty, panic. Like, there's so much fear, but prices aren't actually going lower. And this starts to remind me a lot of the March 2023 low, where we saw a whole bunch of fear, very similar to the actual bear market low, but prices just weren't going any lower. And it almost feels like that right now, because it almost feels like the market is more fearful than April, at least for crypto. The stock market doesn't quite feel the same, but everyone thinks the cycle is over. Like, you've got time analysis suggesting, you know, the cycle top could already be in. You know, there's a pretty decent probability we're just 10 days shorter than, you know, the 1,060-day average for the last few cycles. And, you know, price has come down, you know, 20-something% from the all-time high. But the one thing that bothers me is that would mean the majority of the people would have sold within 20-something% of the all-time high, which if you go back to the 2021 cycle, I don't think, like, I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember very clearly this April lower high here. So obviously, you got people that panic sold, 50 something K. And people just expected prices to just crater. But instead, we got this dead cat bounce right into resistance. And if you do know for now, we haven't had a failed retest of the market bias yet, which if you watch any Jason and Michael videos, you're going to understand would mean a breakdown of around $100,000 or $104,000, and then a failed retest on a lower high. And we just don't have that yet. Like this lower high here, we had crazy FOMO. Like everyone was calling $100,000 Bitcoin. Like that FOMO also extended into the stock market. Like I remember people were saying, such and such stocks were going to do 200, 300% when, they had just 5% left in them at the time. And you want people to be FOMOing in at, 48K and then panic selling out on, I think this was the FTX collapse at like 17K. But right now, if price just rolls over from where we are now, everyone would have sold the top, which I remember Michael talking heaps about in his videos around March. Michael Pizzino, if anyone that doesn't know his full name, go watch his YouTube videos. I've talked about him before on this channel. If everyone sold out at say $94 or $77,000 and price just created to $30,000, again that would mean everyone sold out within 30% of the top, which doesn't ever happen. Like the masses cannot all be right, or else everyone would be a millionaire and no one would be a billionaire. That's actually one of my original sayings. I don't know if anyone else has said it before, but I'm claiming it as my original. Now over here on my other 4-hour Coinbase chart, I've drawn this orange sloped diagonal, and you can see we were looking very good until whatever the heck happened here. Did Trump say something? Did a war break out? I don't even remember. There's so much crappy news coming out, I don't even pay attention to it all. But you can just see we had this nice uptrend. Everyone thought the bottom was in. They were going to FOMO in on this massive candle. I think that was Trump saying something, or I don't even know, only to get slapped right back down. Now, right now, it does actually look like we've had a failed retest on this previous wick during the last stock market session. However, we are still holding above this 50% level, and price looks like it is forming a bit of a base here. Like this head and shoulders could still happen, but I am still tracking this diagonal downtrend resistance line. And if we can get some nice continuation in the next few hours, I think once we start to get closes and higher lows above, 112,500, this entire move here underneath this orange line, in my opinion, is going to be the higher low on potentially more fear or equal fear, and get, masses to short, fumble their bags, sell out of their positions before price, rockets away. Anyways, that's just my sixth sense on the market right now. Thank you all for watching, and if you are in the TIA Discord, I have posted in my Bitcoin analysis channel my exact entry on this trade, my exact take profit and stop loss strategies. And if you are in some other Discords that I'm in, I may have shared parts of that trade as well. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.